Hello, my name's Graham Burnett. I'm a writer, artist and community practitioner based in Southend-on-Sea. This exhibition is called Spaces, Faces, Places and Traces. It's a kind of documentation of Southend's history as told through fanzines, alternative publications, people's papers made over the last 60 years or so. In 2022 I published a book called Southend-on-Sea, which kind of interviews and covers a lot of the ground that the exhibition covers, but kind of became aware there was I collected up a lot of material that didn't fit in the book, and there was a lot of interesting stuff there, and so I kind of started a podcast based on that, which I've got about 3 episodes up so far, but also the opportunity to maybe put on a few exhibitions of this, display this stuff in public, and just documenting that rich history of things that people have produced over the last 60 years in this amazing creative town we live in. I guess the origins of the project came from, I went to a talk by Tim Burrows, who's a local writer and journalist, about seaside cultures, and we were talking, or he was talking during his presentation about this kind of, that Southend has this reputation of being about, Essex girls, white van man, the only way is Essex, or kiss me quick hats and stuff like that. But there's actually this much more rich history, and in the Q&A after, Tim was saying to me, well, where is this story told? Where can we find this narrative? And that's where I said, well, in these kind of alternative publications. And he kind of said, well, someone needs to be documenting this then. Well, I suppose that'll be me then. I've talked myself into another project. So that was the kind of background of where it all sort of came about. And there's just so much rich creative history, a kind of history of Southend that I guess not many people know about, kind of punk bands, LGBTQ histories, women's histories. People were putting on street theatre events during the 1970s. There was Women's Aid that was kind of set up in the 1970s, and just trying to raise a bit of awareness about all these histories of stuff that's going on, and hopefully this exhibition will go some way towards bringing that history to life again, while some of us are still around, because when we're gone a lot of this stuff would just be lost otherwise. And so that was the motivation. I think hopefully it'll raise a bit of awareness about the history of this town, not the kind of the mainstream history, but this kind of alternative history of the town and things that have been going on. There is kind of artworks and covers of fanzines and alternative publications that probably didn't sell very many of, probably only sold a couple of hundred at the most at the time, but it's still that documenting of this alternative history, and I hope to raise awareness of that, and also some of the incredible artwork that people produced, that was kind of ephemeral, but actually, to kind of capture that. I mean, at the time, who when people were putting this stuff together, who knew that 50 years' time it would be appearing in a gallery, or there'd be kind of a semi-academic book written about this stuff. But I'm hoping that people will take away an awareness of this kind of other history of Southend that isn't necessarily documented in like the archives of the Echo newspaper or the minutes of Southend Borough Council meetings and stuff like that. This other history, and there are kind of copies sort of on the wall that people can pick them up and have a little flick through, and rather than not take them away, but they can have a look through and get a sense of what those stories are about. We had a kind of preview on Saturday afternoon, and I noticed people flicking through and looking at the posters going, oh, I remember that gig, or I was in that band, or oh yeah, I was at that event. And it's quite interesting just seeing those memories stirred up for people. As I said, I produced a book about 2 or 3 years ago called Southend on Zine, which kind of goes into much more depth around some of the stories I've been telling you just now. There's interviews going back to people who are producing magazines and fanzines right from the early 70s to the present day, really. I still have copies of that. And I also do a podcast called You Better Hear, which again is covering a lot of this ground. I've done episodes on the people who've been producing the zines over the years. I've also done an episode on the local it's called the bedroom scene, but don't get the wrong idea, it's actually about bands who used to kind of make music in their bedrooms and stuff like, because it's all they had available, drumming on biscuit tins and cardboard boxes and stuff like that, documenting that scene. And the next one that I'm working on at the moment is looking at Southend's poetry scene, and that should be out hopefully this side of Christmas.